Top 3 baits that you need in the post spawn for shallow bass. Let's talk about it here on the Googan Lab. The first bait that you are going to need in the post spawn for shallow bass is a spinnerbait. Now this is an old school bait, but arguably one of the best bass catching baits of all time in many water depths. But in the post spawn for bass, there's shad that are spawning up shallow, and many lakes that have shad spawns, it becomes one of the best bites on the lake. Early morning, low light hours, shad often spawn around the full moon or new moon, but I'm telling you, the spinnerbait just imitates those shad so good, and you can fish it through shallow brush, you can fish it on grass, you can throw it right up on the bank and not get snagged. It's such an effective bait, and bass eat it up. Now you can choose your colors of spinnerbait just depending on the water clarity around you. If you got a really clear lake, I recommend going with a really natural shad type color. But for most lakes that I fish that are stained, I really like to go with chartreuse and white. And I fish a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce, just depending on how deep. But usually I go with a 1/2 ounce. I get a lot of distance with it, and you can start fishing a spinnerbait faster in the post spawn than you would in the pre-spawn. So this just becomes a really effective bait that you can zip around, fish fast, and fish will come up even right at the surface and grab it. One tip that I'll give you that you know you're throwing the spinnerbait at the perfect time is if you see any shad following your spinnerbait, that's when you know that they're spawning. They're trying to rub against your blades. They're literally trying to spawn with your spinnerbait. That is a perfect time to be flinging around the spinnerbait. The second bait that you want to have tied on for shallow water post spawn bass is a weightless bait. I love a Wacky Rig, like this lunker log right here. This Wacky Rig, such an effective post spawn shallow water fishing bait. It sinks very slowly, but it has a lot of action when it sinks. You know, this thing will just wobble side to side, and for some reason fry guarding fish really hate weightless baits like this. So you can fish a Wacky Rig style. You could also fish weightless Texas rig style with the same sort of stick bait. You could also go with like a dart and rig that up, and that's got a aggressive look to it, side to side. Fry guarders will eat it, and also bass that are targeting bluegill will eat these. So this is a baby bass color right here. I usually go with like any sort of green pumpkin or green color as well. Tends to work really good when you're seeing bluegill up in the shallows, which often happens right after the bass spawn. It works out perfectly. Some of those bigger bass will stick around and eat on those bluegill, and this just works beautifully around bluegill beds, around brush, grass, perfect for docks. You can skip this thing up around dock walkways and really get it into some tricky spots. So love to fish weightless plastics around shallow cover when the bass are in post spawn. Now if you get an overcast day, it is time to break out your favorite topwater. Overcast, bass tend to suspend a little bit more, and they'll look at the surface more, and a topwater can be good for hours and hours. It's not just an early morning thing. And especially when bass are fry guarders, or they're just coming off the spawn, they just tend to look up. So I love to throw a popping bait or a walking bait. Those are my two favorite style topwaters. This is a hound right here. I just walk this really fast. I usually fish this if I don't even know if there's fish in the area. I'm just running through real quick. If I'm seeing some fry guarders or something like that, I love to go with a popper style bait like the blooper and just slowly fish that in an area. But overcast is your best friend for topwater fishing, and it becomes great around cover too. So you can target a tree or a piece of brush, fish the topwater right there, pause it next to it, and you'll get some amazing strikes from post spawn topwater bass. Those are my personal favorite top 3 baits for fishing shallow in the post spawn. If you want to see how to rig these baits specifically, subscribe to the Googan Labs down below, and we'll see you on the next one.